Nothing too much, nothing too much. Running around per usual.
I feel you. I feel you.
How's everyone doing this morning, though?
We are good.
We're doing
We are
good,
on
man.
live. Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday.
Good morning.
You know
Good
who
morning.
I am.
Good morning.
I'm sports
Good
mental
morning,
health
everyone.
empowerment coach and couple marriage and family therapist, Dr. Lauren Pitts. It's my amazing co-host extraordinaire, Ronnie Ransome Jr. He's going to introduce our special guest. Hey, Ronnie, guess what?
What's up?
You remember what had happened last week? I had called you from the Cowboys Commanders game, and you pretended like your phone was freezing up and didn't want to talk to me. Yeah, that's what he did to me, y'all. I said on the show, didn't I tell y'all? I said, I'm going to call you on live from the game. And that's what I did. And he kept going like this, y'all. So
I guess if you don't have AT&T, Jerry Jones don't respect other phone lines. So what can I do? What can I do? But y'all won a game that you were supposed to win, so we're not gonna get too hyped. We're not gonna
folks act like they didn't want us to win the game. But let me tell you something. I had so much fun that even had we lost that game, because I was holding my breath. Because you know what? One of the fans that you could see we was around a bunch of crazy people. One of the fans that was sitting near us said that he wasn't getting too happy because we're notorious for losing games we're supposed to win and winning games we're supposed to lose. So we were holding our breath for a minute. I ain't even going front. We were holding our breath, but I had so much daggone fun that it wouldn't have made a difference if we lost or not. I still had I told you I was so busy waving my white towel, I pulled a muscle in my back. I've had salon patches on my back since Sunday night because I was at that game acting a plum fool. I had so much fun.
Well, we're glad you had so much fun. And speaking of that shoulder pain you're talking about, you know what? Today's topic is actually, we might have something for you today. So before we get started into it, today's topic, we're talking about athletes and cannabis. For so long, up until the last few years, cannabis has had this, extremely negative stereotype and negative reputation amongst, athletes, student athletes, and the whole 9 yards. It's been, called the career killer. It's been called, selfishness. It's been called addiction. It's been called a whole bunch of things that a lot of the times just aren't true. And so we really wanted to dive into this topic today because we think it's really important that we have an open and honest conversation about, cannabis and how it impacts our student athletes and professional athletes. For so long it's been given a negative stereotype, but is it really something that's that negative? And, so when we were broaching this idea back during the summertime, I was like, you know what? I got somebody perfect for this conversation. So our special guest this morning is I ain't gonna cry like T.O. did at his press conference, but this is my quarterback, y'all. He's my quarterback at Virginia State University. He's Trojan alumni. My man, Mr. Taryn Ayers. He is the owner, operator, CEO, COO, board member, all the above for Organic Culture, Apparel, and also Baked Remedies. So, Taryn, good morning, man. Welcome on the show, man. I really appreciate it, man. It's homecoming weekend, man. You gonna be on the yard later on?
Yes, sir. Good morning. Good morning. Go Trojans. It's VSU's homecomings, one of the best homecomings in the nation. Honestly, it's probably one of the best homecomings in the world. So if you're ever in the area, I wouldn't advise you to miss out on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I heard them out there this morning. They had the parade going down University Avenue, Chesterfield Avenue this morning. So yeah, now it's going to be a good day. It's beautiful outside. It's supposed to be in the low 60s, sunny, beautiful weather, great football weather. We got a hell of a game lined up for homecoming today. We're going to talk about that later on. As much as they say our rival is Virginia Union, I don't care what nobody says. My favorite game every time we played each year was against Bowie State. So we're going to talk about that a little later on. So before we get into the topic, y'all, Dr. Pitts, you have a mental health tip of the week this week?
I don't.
You don't? All right, bet. So let's jump right on into this conversation, man. So Taryn, man, so real quick before we get started, man, tell the people a little bit about yourself, man, where you're from, what you do and everything, and how you yourself got introduced into, the world of cannabis and, what you do today.
Hi, y'all. How you doing again? I'm Terry Nez, a representative from Buckingham County, Virginia. I'm a former athlete and student at Virginia State University, former teacher. Now I'm a cannabis enthusiast and as well as a apparel design creator right now. What kind of got me into a little bit of the cannabis thing is being a rebel. I was the kid that when I came up, I kind of questioned everything that we shouldn't do. And then I also questioned everything that we should do too. And sometimes, when I question those things, the wrongs end up being the right things to do morally. But I got introduced to cannabis on a recreational level. When I was first introduced to it, of course, as a teenager and things, everybody's kind of playing around with the world, trying to find out what the world is and about for you. And then, my first experience with it wasn't as a great of experience as most people would claim the first experience was, because it was something new to me. I had to see how my body was going to get adjusted to it. And then I also had to see how I was going to hide the way I looked from my grandmother now when I got in the house. Moving forward though, getting to the actual real basis of cannabis, it wasn't until I got into college and actually playing college ball that I realized that I needed another alternative rather than taking prescriptionized medicines for things that I was dealing with, especially pain. Playing football, like I said, it's a Mack truck on Mack truck game, collisions every day, collisions every play. And, you don't really feel the pain or the effects of it until after the game. After the game, that's when the medical and the funds take over. That's where doctors get paid after the game. Prescriptions get wrote after the game. Insurance get billed after the game. But there's never really the athlete getting better after the game. He's only getting better over time, which is natural remedies of the body. What the prescriptionized drugs were doing, they just was alleviating some of the pain, but they was causing pains in other areas. So I reached out to a friend of mine. It was actually a young lady. She was actually vegan at the time. And she told me I needed to get more on a herbal institute rather than taking prescriptionized medicines. She didn't go fully deep into it because our conversation kind of got short at that time. But that's when I started really indulging in cannabis, and cannabis was actually taking the pain away from me rather than using prescriptionized drugs from the actual medical physicians.
Word, man. Thank you, man, for sharing that. And it's crazy when you mentioned about how, especially when you got in college, like, we talk about this all the time on the show, like, just not only the mental effects of the game, but obviously the physical effects. And I've shared on this platform on numerous occasions just some of my physical, battles, especially my last 2 seasons, Terry, when you were there, like I tell people all the time, like before each game, our team doctor had a needle shooting it up in my knee either before the game or at halftime, just so I could get through the game and everything. And, I was taking, sometimes 10, 15, ibuprofen a day just to, get through practice, just to be able to walk to class. I mean, just so my knees wouldn't be swollen day to day. And, so when I was in college, one of the things I used to, do to kind of like deal with that was obviously, the pills and whatnot, and the shots the doctor was giving us, but also, alcohol. Alcohol was my substance of choice, during my undergrad years. And when we were having our production meeting earlier in this week, one of the things I had shared with Dr. Pissantarian was like, looking at hindsight, I myself have been a cannabis user for about the last 4.5 years. And, I swear by, not only obviously the medicinal effects, but just the physical, effects that it has on my body, and how, when I'm in pain, I don't reach for prescription drugs anymore. I don't reach for like ibuprofen or Tylenol, or, sometimes the more hardcore ones, especially the ones I used to get after surgery, like the hydrocodones, the Oxycontins and stuff like that. I tell people all the time, the first time I had my knee surgery.
Have you floating on the ceiling?
But it's crazy.
Laying in the hospital bed.
It's crazy though. My first ever knee surgery, I never forget it. My first ever knee surgery, they wrote me a prescription for hydrocodones. I think it was like, I want to say like it was like a couple 100 milligrams. Like it was a pretty heavy dose and whatnot. And I kid you not, I had my surgery like I think like 8 o'clock at night. Got out, and the doctor was like, "Here, take these. This will help you sleep through the night." I was up for 36 hours straight. Like I wasn't in pain. I was, I was chilling, just relaxed, but could not go to sleep at all. And I felt miserable. And when I had my second knee surgery, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to take no pain meds. that was an absolute mistake because boy, when that anesthesia wore off, oh my God.
Might as well amputate this mug. Just cut it off. I don't even need it. Here,
man, and look, man, I cried so bad the first night because I was like, I'm not taking these pain pills because I'm not about to be up. But yo, like I don't wish that on nobody. But you know, one of the things I was definitely reflective on is, you know, I said that I don't think me personally, I don't think I would have had the, you know, emotional maturity and also the self-accountability and responsibility to use cannabis in my undergrad years. You know, because for me at that stage in my life, you know, I wasn't emotionally mature enough to probably handle something like that. As you know, as good as a feeling that it gives me, you know, from a recreational standpoint, you know, I also know back then, like, I wasn't mature enough just to handle day-to-day responsibilities. You know, I always tell people before I got my bachelor's degree, I had a PhD in procrastination, you know, so like, so, you know, but now as an adult and, you know, when we talk about, you know, the effects of THC, you know, obviously a lot of the things that, you know, when growing up, people say, you know, don't do drugs, you know, weed will make you stupid. One of the most terrible concepts I always heard was, you know, marijuana was a gateway drug, that if you start using marijuana, that's not going to be good enough for you. You're going to want to go to some booger sugar, some, you know, cocaine, some dope, whatever the case may be. But if you start with marijuana, somehow, some way, you're going to advance on to these other drugs. And as, you know, as I've become an adult and, you know, really becoming a clinician as well, you know, one of the things that, you know, I deal with clients on a day-to-day basis who, you know, use multiple substances. And so just doing my history and research on, you know, something as simple as marijuana, like it's been given such a negative stereotype and negative rep for well over 100 years now, you know, just looking back at the history of it, you know, when it was just, you know, used as hemp and stuff like that, it's always been given this bad rep. And even when we look at it from a sports perspective, like one of the most recognizable athletes in the last decade who you know, really suffered with, you know, marijuana was Josh Gordon. And you know, for those who don't maybe not know who Josh Gordon was, phenomenal athlete, played receiver for the Cleveland Browns. I think was drafted in 2011 and 2012. Well, basically as his first 3 years in the league was killing it. Arguably, you know, one of the top 3 receivers in the league, but he had a history of, you know, drug suspensions related to marijuana. And, you know, when they used to interview him and talk to him, one of the first things he said was, you know, like, I have, you know, what we know now is complex PTSD. You know, I had a very rough upbringing, a very rough childhood. It was chaotic, violence, whole 9 yards. And, you know, he said, I want to say he said he started in like maybe 12 or 13. I could be wrong, but I want to say it was like early teenage years that he started self-medicating with marijuana because he was like, that was the only way I could get through the day. That was the only way I could, you know, manage the stress, the anxiety, the depression, the anger that I felt as a kid because my life around me was so chaotic. And, you know, from a clinician standpoint, I'm like, I feel you, I understand that. But however, you know, in real time, in the reality of it, it cost him his career. It cost him a chance to really, you know, make a mark in the NFL. Yeah, he's been back and forth, you know, from teams the last decade and whatnot, but he's been suspended so much over the last decade because of something that he just couldn't let go. Marijuana was a detriment in that case. And unfortunately, that becomes like the poster child for representation when we talk to student athletes and professional athletes of why you shouldn't use it. And I think that's such an unfair reputation for something like this to have when we know that there are really legitimate medicinal benefits. So, you know,
let me speak to that, Ronnie. Hold on for a second. So I think, and you both touched on it, I think that one of the mistakes that's being made as it relates to cannabis use among athletes is that, or at least my perspective, is that it's being viewed as black or white, meaning there's no gray area. It's right. You have people that are saying, no, it's good. And then you have another group of people that's saying, no, it's bad. It's a gateway drug. Mm-hmm. But I think what people are failing to recognize, at least from a clinical perspective, is that there is significant gray area. And the reason why there's significant gray area is because every single solitary individual is different. You cannot use a cookie cutter approach with cannabis no more than you can use a cookie cutter approach if you're prescribing Oxycontin or oxycodone or Dilaudid or Percocet or, OxyContin. You have to be very, very, very particular because the doctors are practicing as well. The doctors are creating cocktails, if you will, to try and determine what the best fit is for you in order to work. So your body weight is taken into consideration, your condition, your medical history is taken into consideration. Do you have any other underlying conditions that are contributing factors to the overall well-being of your health? So we want people to understand, and I need our audience to hear this. What Ronnie is saying and what Taryn is saying, that's their perspective, that's their experience. They're not speaking for everybody, right. Nor are we as the collective for House Talk Pregame, and for me as Dr. Lauren Pitts, as my practice. Each person has to take into consideration all factors considered, hence why there's a reason why you can get a medical marijuana card. So that's still requiring you to seek medical counsel so that you are making a well-informed decision as to whether or not cannabis is the best treatment methodology for you. It is important that we emphasize that. You cannot just go with this thing all willy-nilly. You're growing cannabis in your backyard and, and your grandmama, behind the daggone moonshine still. Like, this is serious business, folks. Absolutely. This is serious business. And it's not as simple as, oh, it's a gateway drug, or, oh, it's not. There are so many contributing factors that has to be taken into consideration before the determination is made as to whether or not cannabis is the right treatment approach for each individual. Clinically, one of the things that we have to take into consideration is, are you predisposed to drug addiction? Are you predisposed to substance abuse? Do you have a mental illness? We've explained this term before. There's a term called co-occurring disorder. That means you're dealing with substance abuse and mental illness simultaneously. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Did you have mental illness first, or did you have substance use and abuse issues first? So you can't just be like, oh, well, I'm gonna get me some edibles, I'm gonna smoke me, so I'm gonna do whatever. No. That is irresponsible, and it speaks to what both these men are saying, that there's a level of maturity that has to be present before you just jump in and make the determination that cannabis is going to be the best possible treatment for you. It's like anything else. You have to seek wise counsel.
Absolutely. May I speak and say something on the back end of that?
Please.
Absolutely, man.
As far as seeking wise counsel too, not only with cannabis, I think a lot of people get scared nowadays in seeking counsel with their actual physicians, being that some of the pharmaceutical processes that they get does not help. I know people of color specifically that I've talked to, and even people, that's not of color. They spoke on the factors that, when they go into the medical physician, they're going in there to be able to do more. And then they actually leave out there doing less because, one, they don't understand exactly the prescriptions that they're being prescribed. Half of the people don't even know the actual names or actual pronunciation of those prescriptions. So if those same people are scared of the cannabis plant, why would they be willing to just accept something coming from someone that still scares them, even though that's a medical physician? But if the other study on the other end, if the doctor on the other end has a study or a field in cannabis and feels like that's a better relation to what's going on with that person, I think that the cannabis world and the medical physicians need to work hand in hand with bringing more information to the public, instead of trying to separate the public on, thoughts and feelings.
Co-caregiver alliance.
Yep.
That clinically, that's what we would refer to that as. That is a co-caregiver alliance that needs to be formed between the medical profession and the cannabis world to come up with a formula, if you will, that provides the safest possible approaches to treatment for individuals that are entertaining the possibility of utilizing cannabis for their physical health needs. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Definitely.
And then I think some people, they get a little bit scared of using cannabis, or they get physicians may be scared of giving certain people a cannabis related medicine because they could have done other mental processes or checks on them and
Yeah.
see that they don't hold the capacity to keep this at a medical level. They
Right.
could turn the medical usage into a recreational usage now.
Right.
They wouldn't even understand that process, because the ability of what we're using cannabis for is not to make us feel better or to alleviate. It's actually meant to help us move forward in a more natural way without side effects, to take something that gives you energy or that can clear your mind without rupturing your liver. Because
Yeah,
usually if you take a prescription, I know my grandmother was on prescription. She was of the age of 65. They told us when I was 21, I was strong as an ox at that point. You can't mix Tylenol and aspirin together. My grandmother was mixing 15 different medications together, one to equal off the side effect of the other one. And that's no way in shape or form of being healthy, because you can't even drink enough water to counteract that and clear your body out. So some of the things she was going through at the time, I was way younger to understand, but I always told her, Grandma, I know you're not supposed to be taking all this medication.
Right.
But she can afford that because of the insurance value she had. Had that same insurance provider she had, or that same medical provider that she went and saw, actually seen her as a more of a person than as an insurance claim, I think she would have got a little bit more healthier. When she stopped taking her medication, she actually started doing more of the ages of 69 through 75 before she had passed. But she actually started doing more things of walking, doing more outdoor activities, as opposed to being so bedridden or sitting inside the house. Medication is not bad. I wouldn't say that at all, but I would say that there's other alternatives or practices out here that hasn't been touched yet, that the people should actually do their own research on, and then bring their research to the front of their medical physicians and ask them, hey, would this be a better alternative for me? Because the things that they say it can do for me, that's what I'm experiencing in my body, and those are the things I want to clear up.
Let me, Ronnie, can I just touch on one thing real quick? So to that point, Arian, thank you for bringing that up, because it reminds me, so a more recent situation. So as clinicians, one of the things that Ronnie and I have to do, there are times that we may have to write a report or submit our records if one of our clients needs to apply for short-term disability because of their mental health issues, right? And in filling out those reports, one of the and more recently I have two cases in particular, the insurance examiner asked, they kept kicking back my reports. And finally, when it all came down to it, point blank, plain, Dr. Pitts, what medication are you prescribing? I'm not prescribing any medication. Well, why not? Because Dr. Pitts doesn't believe that medication intervention should be the number one intervention. It's the last intervention. I'm not going to come out the gate and automatically recommend that a client go on medication because of exactly what you said. And I didn't know this until early in my career in working with children that were prescribed all these different mental health medications for ADHD and oppositional defiant disorder and conduct disorder and all of these things, that these kids were having to go have blood work. And I said, well, what's that for? Liver damage. Because you have them on all of these daggone medications supposedly to treat ADHD and oppositional defiant disorder and all of these other challenges that they're having, and you're destroying their liver. And oh, by the way, then I've encountered adult clients who, I'm saying, we're noticing, because we do observations in session, right? You're noting, and I'm like, something's off here. What's going on? And I said to my client, when was the last time you had a med check? Because psychiatrists, we're hopefully I reached out to a sports psychiatrist in my network. I'm hoping we'll be able to get him on the show to have part of this conversation. But psychiatrists manage meds. And I said, when was the last time you did a med check? 3 years. 3 years. 3 years since there had been a med check. First of all, why are you not having a med check in 3 years? Second of all, why is the psychiatrist providing refills on a client that you haven't seen in 3, like, are you kidding me? But it goes to what you said, Terry. And it's no disrespect to any of our colleagues, because we know we have some legitimate colleagues that play by the rules out there. But we also have colleagues out there that are in bed with these pharmaceutical companies. And I can't say definitively that there's kickbacks or anything like that. I'm just saying that the math doesn't add up. And it's to the detriment of the physical well-being of our clients. And what do we know to be true? There's a connection between mind and body. So if your physical well-being is being compromised, by default, it's going to erode your overall mental well-being. It's this vicious cycle. And the pharmaceutical companies and some of these doctors that don't operate from a place of ethics and integrity are hosing our clients. Yeah. Go ahead, Ron. Sorry. I just wanted to get that in.
Oh, no, not both of y'all made excellent points. And I think that's really important, which kind of leads to my next question. Terry, what I want you to share your perspective on real quick is, you know, as student athletes, we know that during the, you know, course of the season, you know, the NCAA at least one point during the season does random drug screenings. And I don't know if you remember back in 2014, when I think the week we played Lenore Ryan, after we had played Cal PA the first week, we had our random drug screening. And I never forget it, because I remember Coach Scott told us that Monday he sent out the huddle message saying, hey, there's a random drug screening, I think either Tuesday or Wednesday morning, be on standby if you get the call. And I'll never forget, the group chat just lit up, because I knew for a fact we had about 15 players on the team, and there's probably more, but at least a good 15 stressed, hurt, nervous. Like, they're like, if I get my name called, it's a wrap. Coach Scott like just gonna kill me at this point. And fortunately, everybody got drug tested, passed. Hey, you know, I don't ask questions. All I know is when we lined up against Lenore Ryan that Saturday, everybody who's supposed to be there was supposed to be there. But share your perspective on how you feel, you know, we just saw, I think Friday, you know, Biden saying, you know, trying to, you know, make steps to decriminalize marijuana and stuff like that. We know that student athletes use marijuana. We know that high school athletes use marijuana, but we know that if you know, have a drug screening and you're flagged for marijuana, you either suspended or you could possibly lose out on your scholarship and your career. So what are some things that maybe you would recommend to maybe student athletes, or what are some things that you would like to see the NCAA change with how they regulate, you know, people who do get flagged for marijuana usage? Or, you know, should you be flagged for it and, you know, just lose out on your career? Or, you know, at that point, should you be recommended to some form of counseling or therapy to really talk about what's going on at that point?
Well, I think it should first start off by, we need a stronger players union to represent the players to the NCAA. Very similar to how the NBA has their union of players who represent themselves on things basis of contracts and things of that nature. So we should definitely start there. We should start in the school programs. Most schools know what type of students that they're allowing to their schools. They might not know the full background, but they do know a lot of representation of what's going on. As a student athlete, we have to hold ourselves accountable and actually be able to come out and speak with other representatives who's going to represent us in our well-being. Being able to go and fully have a conversation with your coach about things that's going on. I know sometimes it may not be that easy, because as a man speaking to another man, you kind of get macho, or as a woman speaking to another woman, you don't really want to tell all your feelings and thoughts of what's going on. But when it comes to like your mental health and that side, being able to open up about what's going on, it takes a lot of stress off, because as an athlete, especially with me in college, and I know a lot of my friends, insurance played a factor in a lot of the things that went forward. So when medicines or what we thought was supposed to help us wasn't affordable, we turned to another choice. And at times that choice ended up being better. Now, I wouldn't say go make that ill-advised choice when you have a career on the line as well, because there are other alternatives to take than just using marijuana. You can get extractions of marijuana that you can use for pain and pain relievers called topicals. Those same topicals wouldn't show up on the test, because that's not going to be a part of your bloodstream. It's just going to be working on the muscles on the top part of your body. Now, with that being said, you can also go speak with your physician, your medical physician or your sports physician, to let them know what's going on. Hey, I'm opposed to using opioids or prescriptionized drugs. Why? I'm scared of the effect of actually being hooked on it. Is there another alternative that I can use? People say that marijuana is bad, you throw your career away. Well, imagine throwing your life away, you know, getting hooked on a prescriptionized drug that you can't beat 20, 30 years later, then you're just getting over it. You know, your life is done. That's just like doing a 20, 30-year jail sentence or something like that. So I would also say sometimes make sure your life aligns with your career when you're making that decision, because sometimes that career might not be the best decision for you. It could be what's working for you right now. So I wouldn't say throw your career away over your life, but I would say open up and speak with people, especially people that's close to you. Not necessarily people that would like make suggestions or try to, you know, talk down on you for what you're talking to them about. But you definitely have to be able to open up with someone who has a better information or insight on what's going on, because everybody done been through your path before. Not everybody's the same, but marijuana has the effect, or not even necessarily marijuana, that's the bad term. Cannabis has the effect on things for the body, especially as an athlete moving forward. That's just more than just pain. We deal with things that's mental. What do we want to wake up and go to practice? Is this still what we really want to do when things are not going right? We have a long week of no sleep. Like, we got to get back into the process of things. That's when the actual plant has benefits that can help us moving forward. That's better than just smoking it on a recreational level.
Carrying your camera dropped, huh?
You said, excuse me, what?
Oh, yeah, your camera dropped. Oh, we can't see you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, you good? Yeah, no, and I think you made some really great points, Terry. And I think, you know, I think it's really unfair that, you know, that a lot of times student athletes, you know, hide their usage. They hide that they're, you know, using substances like cannabis and stuff like that out of the fear of, you know, if my coach find out, or if somebody on campus find out, you know, they might snitch and tell on somebody, you know, I might, you know, lose out on my career, lose out on my chance to play and stuff like that. When you make a great point, a lot of the times, you know, what do we normally do as student athletes during the week or after games and stuff like that? We get, you know, wasted, we get drunk, we, you know, do all these things, put all these other things in our body. If you're somebody like me who, you know, like I said, I was getting shoot up with lidocaine shots every single week. I couldn't sit here and tell you right now the first ingredient inside lidocaine. All I know, it numbed my knee up for 3-4 hours. I could go out there and feel like Superman, and then after 3 or 4 hours, I felt like probably like Ronnie Coleman now, how he is after all Mr. Olympias, where he could barely walk. But I didn't ask no questions, you know, and I think it's unfair that, you know, sometimes athletes have to sit there and hide their usage or hide that they're, you know, struggling with things, and they use this. You made a great point about how, you know, there's many other uses and usages of cannabis and things like that, like the topicals and things like that. What I also wanted you to kind of touch on too was, you know, one of the main components of cannabis is CBD. And, you know, CBD is, you know, for those who are not sure, and Terry can definitely give, you know, the more in-depth perspective on it, is, you know, all the medicinal effects without the psychoactive effects of delta 9 THC, which is the psychoactive component inside the cannabis plant. So Terry, kind of touch on a little bit about, you know, the benefits of CBD, you know, not only as a topical, but also other ways you can ingest it or consume it that can help student athletes and professional athletes manage their pain and other symptoms as well.
Can I ask a question first? Can you explain, just for sake of clarity, the different, the THC versus the CBD? What's the difference? What are their relationship? And then go into that, please.
Take it away, sir.
Okay. The difference of THC and CBD is basically the receptors of the brain. Of course, as we know, because CBD doesn't really have the psychoactive effects. In other words, it won't really cause you to get high. It has different medical properties that THC doesn't have. THC, on the other hand, does have psychoactive effects or ingredients in it. So therefore, the components that it produces is going to make people feel high when they try to associate THC with marijuana in that plant. CBD is another component of the plant, but it doesn't have the psychoactive ingredients to it. It only has medical properties and medical benefits.
And, you know, one of the things that CBD is also treated for not only the physical effects, but a lot of the times for things like anxiety and stress and depression and stuff like that, because you get the medicinal effects of the I can't speak to these specific receptors, but the specific components of CBD that attach to the serotonin and the dopamine levels in our brain and kind of help balance that out and whatnot. So as we know, THC is always, considered a hallucinogen and things like that. And a lot of times people don't want that high effect. One of the things I always tell my clients and I tell student athletes is, as beneficial as cannabis can be, one of the catches to it is I always tell people it always exacerbates whatever you're feeling in that moment. So sometimes if you're not careful enough, if you are feeling stressed and depressed, it can sometimes counteract that and make you feel even more stressed or depressed if you're not careful. If you are feeling, happy, elated, joyful and stuff like that, consequently, then you might feel more of that. But and to my point earlier about having the emotional maturity and knowing if this is right for you or something you should even explore, is we know that physically our brains aren't fully matured until around the age of 25. And a lot of times when you introduce something like cannabis or any type of substance for that matter into your bloodstream, into your body, before that age where your brain has had a chance to fully develop, can there be some long lasting consequences or effects to it? Absolutely. And I always tell people, and this is a conversation that I've had, with Dr. Pitts and I think Terry as well, is like, there's a fine line between recreation and codependence of, any substance, and I always tell people this is just my perspective and definition of, the difference. I feel like when it's for recreational purposes, you're seeking to maybe complement or maybe boost a feeling or a moment in that space of time. For example, like if you are at a level of self-awareness and self-confidence and self-love, and you maybe use something like marijuana to maybe heighten that or even enjoy a specific moment, that's a recreational use. But to Terry's point, if you're going through daily stressors, life is just beating you down, or you're just a student athlete just trying to get through day to day, and the first thing you feel like is going to get you through is marijuana or cannabis or something like that, then we have to ask ourselves, like, are you using this for recreational purposes, or is it codependency? And even to delve even deeper with codependency, I even break it down even further. Is this a vice or is this truly an addiction? I think a lot of the times we throw the word addiction around a lot, and I think it's kind of unfair to sit there and say people who use it heavily or daily users are addicted. There's a fine line between a vice. Oftentimes a vice is categorized as something that may be unethical or not maybe a moral thing that people use on a day-to-day basis to cope with life stressors. And then obviously addiction is, you are going out of your way. You are sacrificing certain responsibilities and certain, things that you should be accountable for just to use this substance or whatever the case may be. So I definitely wanted to highlight that point and, kind of wanted to get your perspective on that as well, too.
Well, as far as I would speak up and say, as far as using it goes, I think wordplay has an effect on how we look at things too. A lot of people who are advocating for the use of cannabis, they don't call it using of cannabis. They call it a practice, because it's not just cannabis that they're practicing. They're actually practicing herbs. And when you look into like the CBD effects of it, you start to get things that can range from like mood enhancers. CBD has things like antioxidants in it. It has anti-inflammatory processes in it, things of that nature as well. It has relaxing and calming benefits. So those are some of the same factors that that prescriptionized medicine use, and I see that all the time in the special education program. A lot of the parents that I've been talking to have now been changing over from giving their kid prescriptionized medicine to actually giving them CBD, because it treats the same effects. And then the value or the way that you can actually indulge or induce CBD is a lot more different, because you don't necessarily have to smoke it. It comes in supplements. It comes in different creams and oils. They come in powders. You can get clothing or accessories that has CBD related in it. My mom has a CBD related gloves that she used for arthritis. She also has CBD related socks that they use for arthritis. They're making a lot of clothing out of actual CBD and hemp because of the value that hemp holds. Hemp, you can make paper, build houses and different things of that nature out of hemp and the cannabis plant. That's why I would say the practice of actual herbs, I think they should look at it a little bit differently, because it has the same benefits of practicing herbs than it does of just taking a medical approach or a actual recreational approach to just smoking it, because there's more that you do with marijuana than just smoke it.
Absolutely.
I wanted to expand, Ronnie, on what you said about and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but the importance of awareness, because I've actually had clients that use cannabis, whether whether smoking or edibles, that realize that the edibles in particular made them more anxious and made them I've encountered clients that it made paranoid. So I think that it's really important for people to understand, and what I advise my clients to do, I said, when you go to the dispensary, you need to have a conversation with the individuals working at the dispensary, and you need to convey to them what your issues are. Don't just go in and just pick up a product and pay for it and roll back out the door. You need to be having a well-informed discussion with the individuals working at the dispensary so that they can help you to make a well-informed decision based upon what your needs are, what your medical history is, which is why I said, agreeing with Terrian about the importance of medical doctors sort of having these informative and psychoeducational discussions with cannabis specialists, so that people aren't sort of playing Russian roulette with their lives and their physical health just by oh yeah, those edibles look good, let me get some brownies, let me get some gummies. No, you have to make decisions much more responsibly than that, so that you make sure you're not making matters worse. The second thing that I wanted to point out and expand upon a little bit is with regards to that word addiction, right? I think that it's important for people to understand that whether it's cannabis or any other type of prescribed drug or any other type of illegal substance, addiction, people's like, I'm not addicted, I can stop whenever I want to, then stop. If that's a red flag to us as clinicians. Anytime a client says to us that they can stop whenever they want to, that's a tell, right? What we look at clinically where addiction is concerned is if your use and or abuse of whatever the substance is eroding, adversely impacting, compromising your daily functioning. If you cannot start the day, finish the day, navigate your day without smoking, without doing an edible, like if you are dependent upon this substance to be able to function, and I'm not necessarily talking about physical functioning, I'm talking about mental functioning, right?
Right.
You cannot, because the physical aspect is different, because we're talking about your physical health, but mentally, if you cannot function without this substance or any substance in your system, and oh, by the way, your behavior is notably different and more adverse when you don't have that substance in your system, Houston, we have a problem. Right. We have a problem, because what that suggests to us is the dependency has been developed.
Hey, Dr. Pitts, Terrian has to get ready to go real quick. So, okay. Terrian, look, man, hey, we really appreciate you joining us today and sharing your knowledge and everything. Real quick, man, how can the people get in touch with you, get in contact with you if they have any cannabis-related questions or just want to, chop it up with you about life, or also inquire into your clothing line? Tell the people real quick how they get in contact with you, where they can find you, all the good stuff.
Okay, give a quick rundown on social media. We are on social media. Our social media platforms for our clothing line is going to be in relation to Organic Culture Apparel _VA. That will be Instagram. Website will be vajungle.com. Also on the website, it gives you a board on there to where you can contact us individually. It has all my information up there, from email to phone numbers, as well as our art information, or our cannabis related information that's also related on Instagram. That's called Baked Remedies VA. with an underscore. We have all our email information located up there in our bio as well. If there's any type of questions, concerns, we can help you in any type of way, shape, or form. Don't hesitate to reach out to us in any shape or way, and we'll respond to you as fast as we can. Also, I want to say thank you all for having me today. I honestly want to say you've inspired me to want to do what you all are doing right now. So after this, I was going to actually text Ronnie and see what would be the process to getting myself involved in the line of work that you all do.
Wow.
Because I was looking for what my calling may have been in life, and I tried teaching. And I saw that I just wanted to be able to help people by informing them and giving them information and values of things that you may not find out here in the everyday world. Not everybody is going to research those values or want to go be that weird person to do those type of studies. And that's who I am. And that's the type of information I want to be able to give back to my public.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for joining us, Terry. And as always, and we tell most that you are welcome to join us at any time. We know that there's going to be more discussion about this topic. And folks, support him. Support him. Go to his website. Check out his apparel line. Real quick, tell him about baby girl, because you talking about generational wealth right here. His baby girl ain't but a minute big and has her own clothing line already. We need to reach out and show some love and support. So tell him how to access that as well.
We also do carry kids' clothes. The kids' clothing line is called Layla and Company. I chose to give that down to her because I know 10 years from now, I won't be producing clothes that's for her generation. She may not even be a creator herself growing up, but she may enlighten those around her to want to be a creator. And then she'll be having a platform that she can give up and step up for those who want to be around her, a part of her company. So if you want to get anything involving clothing clothes, you can also reach out to Organic Culture Apparel _VA. We'll send you a link that's invited to our website. You can be sure to check out all of the Layla and Company clothing and apparel there. She will also be doing a new drop on the 18th of this month. That's her birthday. So we're going to have a special Layla and Company. It's going to be a hoodie and a coat dropping on the 18th of this month for children.
Nice. Congratulations on that. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate you.
VSU. Woo woo.
Yeah, go Trojans. And I would say, please support any other team out here except for the Dallas Cowboys. If you are supporting the Dallas Cowboys right now, I do think you might need some real mental health and talks. And if you need help in that aspect, I got a lot of better teams that I can,
I take back everything that I said about supporting him, audience. Take it all back. Take it all back. Take it all back.
That's my quarterback.
You see, his loyalty is to Ronnie, right? Okay, T, I got you.
That's my quarterback.
You know what? Ronnie forgot to tell you that Dr. Pitts I pride myself on allowing people to live with their decisions.
I got something for you. 1 second. Hold on 1 second. I got something.
Eli, say hi to the people, man.
Eli, say hi to the people, Eli.
You know what?
Say hi to the people, Eli.
Man, oh man. Terry, hey man, it was a blessing to have you on, big dog. I appreciate it as always, man. Once again, you are part of the House Talk family for life, man. Anytime you want to drop back on, man, you're more than welcome to join us, man. So, hey, look, if I see you on the yard later on, man, let's have a good time and everything. Appreciate you, big dog.
And the next time, thank you all again. The next time I have this talk, I want to see if I can get my friend aboard so he can actually join the conversation with us. Me and him like to talk health, and we like to actually include the black and white aspect into it. He's a white counterpart, and we go through the same things when we talk about what we're dealing with in the mental health crisis or and just in the cannabis community. It's not a black and white thing. It's literally what we are going through to try to get this brought forward to the nation as a whole, as a common. So I would like to have him on board next time if possible, and or her. They have a lot of information they would like to relate to the public and give to you all.
Absolutely.
Definitely, man. We'll have to arrange that, man. Definitely.
Okay.
All right, then take care.
Thank you all so much. Same to y'all. Be safe.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. Man, that was a beautiful conversation, and we really appreciate him being on and everything.
Indeed.
So Dr. Pitts, any final words, thoughts on what we talked about today?
I think that the bottom line is the emphasis has to be placed upon information. You know, as cliche as it is, knowledge really is power. And in order for people to be able to make a well-informed decision as to whether or not cannabis is the right direction for them to go, people have to educate themselves. You cannot make decisions about your physical health or your mental health based on wrong or limited information. And yeah, I just want to put the emphasis on the importance of educating oneself so that you're able to make a well-informed decision, because otherwise you could make a horrible, horrible error that could compromise your mental health as well as your physical health. And we don't want that for anybody. You need to take the time to educate yourself, to empower yourself so that you're better positioned to make a well-informed decision. And oh, by the way, all of the answers that you need are not on social media. They're not on Google. You need to have a responsible, comprehensive discussion with a medical professional or with a cannabis professional, and or both, so that you can make the best possible choice for yourself. And that's all I have on that.
If I could also summarize it up, and thank you for sharing that. If I had to, one thing I want people to understand is that, you know, I think, you know, a lot of substances get a very bad rep, but I will say this: before you go down that journey or that path of wanting to explore using any type of substance, whether it's cannabis, cocaine, heroin, whatever the case may be, understand this. Make sure you have a phenomenal sense of self. And when I say that, self-awareness, self-love, self-confidence, all those things are far more important than any substance you can put in your body. If you do not have self-love, if you do not have self-confidence and self-awareness, do not self-medicate.
Right. You can't, and that's the thing. People, you know, particularly where recreational drugs are concerned, I think that's where people, because I ask my clients, you know, why do you do cocaine? Why do you do Special K? Why do you do meth? You know, why do you do what you do? And I've yet, in all of these years, Ronnie, I have not encountered a single solitary client that says, oh, well, Dr. Pitts, it just relaxes me. No, people are using these substances, particularly, and I'm referencing cannabis, but I'm talking all substances. People are, these non-prescription drugs is what I'm referring to, folks. People use these substances as a means of escape, Ronnie, and that is so dangerous, and it opens the door up for so many other problems in your life. And I say you need to get to the root of what it is that's driving your desire to escape. You need to get to the root of whatever it is that is causing you to want to self-medicate. And once you address that root, then your sense of self can be strengthened. But you have to be careful, you know, whether it's Ronnie or myself, you all know you can reach me through my website at drlaurendpitts.com. You can reach me through Psychology Today. You know, I'm on there. You can reach Ronnie. Have a discussion. Have a discussion to get at the roots of self. What is it that is going on at the base of your emotional volcano that is causing you to choose these substances to escape and to self-medicate rather than face the emotional experiences? I've been this past couple of weeks in particular, Ronnie, I've been doing a lot of normalizing emotions with my clients, in that, you know, people act like heartbreak is the end of the world. People act like, you know, loss is the end of the world. Being like, I'm not discounting the fact that we go through these emotional experiences that cause an exorbitant amount of pain. But at the end of the day, Ronnie, it's life. These things are going to happen. People are going to disappoint us. Our heart's going to be broken. Heartbreak isn't just about, somebody cheating on you or breaking up with you or whatever. Heartbreak can come from losing a loved one to death. It could be disappointment. It could be betrayal. It could be any number of things that fuels emotional pain. And people act as if they're shocked and terrified of experiencing emotional pain. It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't, clinically it makes sense to me, but conceptually in and of it doesn't. Because I'm like, when I think about my own life's journey and the amount of trauma that I've experienced, none of it's killed me. It hurt like heck, but none of it has killed me. And folks are just, I don't want to deal with those emotions right now. But that's just it, Ronnie. People say they don't want to deal with their emotions, but they are. Not dealing with your emotions and self-medicating and hiding behind the substance use and abuse is in actuality dealing with your emotions. Is just dealing with them inappropriately. And it's dealing with them in a way that is going to cause you to have even more negative emotional experiences. That's all I have. Ronnie, let's do these games so that I can go get my nails done.
I appreciate everything you just said. If I had one last thing to say about it before we get into these picks, I do not think substance use should be a criminal charge. Anything that you put in your body obviously is your body and your choice. However, if it is becoming a detriment to your overall well-being, I don't think you should be locked in jail for it. I think you really need somebody like me or Dr. Pitts to have that conversation to utilize those resources. So we're gonna try and get into these picks real quick without somebody being a hater. But
he said he wanted to help host the show.
Word.
He said, don't pick your nose on screen. If you just smooth pick your nose on the air, ew. And I don't even edit, so that's gonna be in there. The whole world is gonna see you pick your nose.
Yeah. So Dr. Pitts, believe it or not, last week you were 8-2.
Yay.
Phenomenal job last week. Everybody give it up for Dr. Pitts.
Yay.
I was once again 6-4. So Dr. Pitts has made some headway, made some gains. So let's get into these picks real quick. So first and foremost, already, Dr. Pitts, if you say anything other than the answer you should say, we're going to have beef.
Hey.
BSU versus Bowie State. Who you got?
I told you BSU. I'm not going against them.
Why?
I told you. Look, because then I have to you and Dr. Maiden. I don't want to have to choke y'all out.
Hey, look, I sent that text message to what's his name last Sunday, first thing in the morning. Let him know. Hey, look.
He ain't respond?
He did.
Did he?
He did. I send him the same message every year, the same mean mug emoji every single year. Like,
y'all look crazy.
Just know.
I'm going with BSU. Come on, Trojan.
We got Shaw versus Johnson C. Smith. So unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to compile the records, but I can say that Shaw has a better record than Johnson C. Smith. I can say that.
I think last week you had said that Johnson C. Smith wasn't doing.
They weren't. Then I think they got one win. If memory serves.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Shaw.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Shaw as well. Shaw is having a pretty good season. All right, next we got Grambling versus Alabama A&M. Alabama A&M actually snuck away with a win last week.
They pulled an upset.
They're doing pretty good. Grambling is I think they've got 2 wins so far in the season, so they're doing pretty fair.
Alabama.
A&M, all right. Oh, you going with A&M too, sir? I'm gonna go with the Graham fam. All right, next we got FAMU versus SC State. All right.
You know I'm going with FAM. I keep telling you, it don't matter.
Game, I'm going FAMU. I'm going FAMU as well. All right, this should be a really good one. We got Jackson State University versus Alabama State. Jackson State is undefeated. I think Alabama State.
Yeah, I always go with Jackson State too. I don't care who they play. I'm gonna always go with Coach Brown.
There we go.
Because he retired as a Cowboy.
We got Bethune-Cookman versus Tennessee State. I must say Tennessee State is having a
they're not season. Doing Coach George. They're not doing well. I'm going with
it. It could be this is his first season, so he might have adopted maybe not the best situation. So
I'm going with Bethune-Cookman.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with you know what? Nah, I'm gonna go with Tennessee State. I'm gonna give Coach George a chance. I'm gonna go with Tennessee State. Next up we got Elizabeth City versus Virginia Union. Virginia Union is still undefeated. They're actually, I think I saw an HBCU poll. I don't know how accurate it is, but Union was number 3 in the HBCU poll between Division 1 and Division 2 HBCU. So
I'll go with Union.
All right, I'm gonna go with Union too. I'm hoping if we beat Bowie today and we run the table and Union run the table, I'm at that game because it's at state. Okay. I'm at that game. I'm there. All right, we got Fort Valley State versus Central State. Fort Valley State only has 2 wins. Central State has 1 win.
I'm gonna go with Central.
Okay. I'm gonna go with Jerry Rice's alma mater. I'm gonna go with Fort Valley. I'm gonna see what they got going on. All right, next up we got Miles versus Benedict. Benedict is also undefeated this season too. They're also 5-0 on the season. Miles, I believe. Whoa, excuse me. Thank you. I believe Miles has 1 or 2 wins, but Benedict.
I'll go with Benedict.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Benedict. I don't eat my eggs, Benedict, but we'll go with Benedict College.
Simple.
Last but not least, we got Albany State at 4-1 versus Edward Waters at 1-4.
See, EW is my alma mater, but I
Head versus heart. This is strictly business.
Yeah.
How bad do you want to wear that Eagles jersey? Go ahead and pick with your heart.
I'm going with Albany.
I need to coordinate with Eric and see which Eagles jersey you want to go with. Eagles fly.
Albany
State. All right.
Yeah. Sorry, Tiger. Sorry, EW. Tiger.
I'm gonna go Albany State as well. All right.
I need to bring some pictures so I can show you when I was at EW. My cute pictures with our Tiger.
Look, we'll edit this part out. We'll edit the last pick out. Talk about our connection went bad real quick. Sorry about that.
Bye, fool. Hey, everybody.
Look, y'all. Thank y'all so much for joining us. Amazing topic. We hope you all learned a lot, and at least we hope we generated and started a conversation that you all can have with your loved ones, with your families, student athletes, professional athletes, the whole 9 yards. So thank you once again for joining us. I'm gonna mute myself because somebody's being extremely rude. They got to be a Cowboys fan. So
it's all good in the neighborhood. Look, folks, have a happy Saturday. Enjoy the football. Enjoy the weather. It's a good day. Again, go VSU. Bye, everybody.
I'm so glad I go to VSU singing glory, hallelujah. Woo! I'm so glad.
Goodbye. Crazy.